Allison Thummel. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm also an exercise physiologist with the American College of Sports Medicine. Basically means I'm a personal trainer plus a little bit more. But I am a registered dietitian, and that's why hopefully you guys came to see me today. I'm going to be discussing targeted nutrition. We're going to talk about 3 topics: nutrition, mindfulness, and personalized eating. So I'm really glad you guys are here. I will take questions at the end, so if you have questions, you might want to jot them down. And let's talk about where we're going to go. Where's our roadmap? We have the ability to change our genetic destiny. And what that means is the foods that we're eating and what we're putting into our bodies can change how we live. If we have, if we can live long, fulfilling lives, or if we suffer from arthritis and other conditions that are debilitating. So we have control of what our genes can do. The second thing is we're going to get answers for the little quiz that you guys took. We're going to talk about personalized nutrition and where that quiz is going to take you. We're going to talk about targeted nutrition. Learn why eating a personalized diet is going to give you the health benefits that you need and help your well-being. And then mindful eating, we're going to talk about how it is to mindfully eat, enjoy our food. So many times we're running, and we don't have time to sit down and enjoy our food. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to have targeted snacks. So you're going to take your little quiz that I gave you and kind of figure out where your top health choices are, and then you can create a snack with that intent in mind, and you also don't have to. Okay, so let's talk about the quiz. So everybody flip it over if you haven't flipped it over, and I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, and I'd like for you to tally your results. So hopefully this is easy. This is a quiz that I just kind of created on my own. Take your Digestive Health, which I believe is the first one, and then tally your answers from questions like 1, 8, and 15.
So 1, 7, and 13.
1, 7,
So
and
we'll
13.
get your answers for 1, 7, and 13.
Yeah, add up the 3 numbers for Digestive Health. And ladies, if you want to not have to keep flipping over, I've pulled up the screen. No. I just pulled it up. You haven't missed it. I just pulled it up, so it makes it a little bit easier. And I told you I'm a personal trainer, so when you are done, if you feel comfortable and if you're able, I'd like for you to stand. Maybe do a jumping jack. No, just kidding. I won't make you do that. Stretch. Everybody wake up. Wake up. Does it feel nice to move? A little bit. Different stretches we can do. Make sure your neck's relaxed, nice and comfy. Does anybody ever do this one? Oh, just kind of hits the middle and upper back.
Shoulder issue, I guess.
Oh, exactly. Did you ever shoot?
I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah.
How big is it?
Yeah. Are you guys already getting a little warmer? It feels like it's getting a little warmer in here.
You're getting used to it.
We're getting used to it. We're slowly. Nice. Okay, so what do you guys think of the survey? Talk to me about, you don't have to mention what your highest one was, but what did you think? Was that, have you ever thought about those particular conditions within your own being?
So does a higher score
Higher score.
indicate that's where we've gotten an issue?
Exact. Well, that's where, like your health concern might be, that's where your higher concern is for the health. So, I mean, was that pretty accurate? Do you feel like that kind of hits your target? What about you, Judy? Yeah? You're saying yeah? Okay.
It's my family, not me, that gave higher scores.
Interesting. Okay. So that means you're having more control of your genetic destiny. So, okay, excellent. Well, let's go ahead and have a seat. So thank you guys for doing that. So that's going to be a little bit of the personalized nutrition that we're going to talk about. So now I have my results. Now what? What should we do? What is targeted nutrition? First of all, targeted nutrition is a proactive, responsible attitude. Proactive meaning you're taking steps, right? You're doing things that are going to work toward your own health and well-being. It targets the promotion and maintenance of your health. So if you already have health, you're trying to maintain it. If you're also trying to prevent disease. A diet adapted to personal needs. What kind of needs do you need for your condition? If you have heart health, Tricia said, her family. If you have a lot of family that has cancers or heart disease or inflammatory conditions, those are all things that you can choose foods that are going to target what that nutritional need is. And then targeted nutrition strives to enhance well-being, your physical, your mental, and your emotional balance, right? Trying to balance those out. One of the certifications that I'm doing is, and as a dietitian, this is just for my continuing education, it's called Bio-Individual Nutrition. And so what that study is doing, well, I'll tell you what it is. It's both scientific and clinical. So we look at your biochemical nutrients. We look at what nutrients you're missing. We try and make sure that you're eating nutrients that are hitting. If you're deficient in like choline, if you're deficient in magnesium, if you're deficient in calcium, you want to be able to eat and then if necessary supplement so that you're getting all the vitamins and minerals in an ideal range. We want to make you function as well as you can. Some people call it like functional nutrition, functional medicine. We're trying to get you to 100%. If your diet is deficient, say in iodine, that's a big one these days with thyroid, then we want you eating iodized salt. If you have, also with the thyroid, sometimes we take people off of gluten, and gluten-free diet can help people with thyroid issues. So nutrition is so biochemical and it's so individualized. We can recommend something for one person and it would kill another person. I think Hippocrates was the one that said one man's food is another man's poison. And it's really true. For the most part, we're all, mostly the same. But what our genetics are, what our bodies need is vastly different. For instance, we can take someone that has heart disease and recommend lots of leafy greens, right? Eat spinach, eat lots of kale and things like that. We take someone with renal disease, and if they eat spinach, they're getting kidney stones. So I'm recommending spinach to this person, and this person, it could put them in the hospital. That's why nutrition is so individualized, and what you eat is going to determine how well you live your life. So it's really, really important. And then the second bullet point says suggest food and nutrient choices. So food is one thing. We also want to make sure we're getting enough fluids, right? If milk is in your diet, then we want to make sure you're getting adequate milk. Green tea, so green tea isn't really a food, but it's a nutrient. It helps a lot of people with mental issues. So green tea, bless you, is what we would call maybe nutrient choices. Also, vitamins and supplements. They're not really food, but they are helping enhance if you have a deficiency. And then, like I said, it's based on the individual need of the individual person. So targeted nutrition, this is where we get kind of into your quiz. So we had 6 different conditions that I kind of targeted towards. There's so many other different conditions, but these are kind of the main ones. And the reason I chose these is they all have inflammation in common. And this is kind of a key word. I'll talk a little bit about where the inflammation is in the body. If heart health is one of your issues, it can present with high blood pressure, cholesterol, plaque buildup, and many others. These are kind of the top ones. Digestive issues. We talked a little bit about allergies, right? Digestive in the stomach. Irritable bowel disease or irritable bowel syndrome, or inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome. That's your IBD and IBS. Your GERD is your reflux. So if you suffer from reflux, that's all digestive. Brain health. Suffer from anxiety, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ADHD, ASD is autism. And I put that on there because my son's on the autistic spectrum. So we do a lot with him with nutrition to try and help his functionality. And then cancer. Cancer is inflammation of the lymph system. So we'll talk about, diet specifically for cancer. Lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, whole wheats, whole grains, things like that. Arthritis, if anybody suffers. And arthritis is that's a musculoskeletal, right? That's just in your bones and joints. But inflammation can present anywhere. We talked about the anxiety. That can be inflammation in the brain. So all of these are related to inflammation, but kind of the one we think about is cancer with inflammation, arthritis, right? You think, oh, my joints are inflamed, my hip, my wrists, my fingers, but all of these are inflammation. And then diabetes, the impaired glucose. You're not able to process your glucose, your blood sugars, and it's related to inflammation. And for diabetes, a lot of that is weight related, and as you increase weight, it's more related to inflammation. So here's some statistics, and the reason I chose these 6 topics is these are the ones that kind of hit most Americans. So heart health, 121 million adults have heart disease. Digestive issues, 60 to 70 million people. Brain health, 1 out of 6 have a mental health disorder. 28 million suffer from migraines, and 5.8 million have Alzheimer's disease. So, those are pretty big statistics, especially the 1 out of 6 with mental health. We definitely see that. We see that a lot in the schools now. A lot of anxiety is presenting. Cancer, approximately 1/3 of us will be diagnosed with cancer during our lifetime. And then arthritis, 54 million, diabetes, 100 million. That's a huge amount of people. And if we don't suffer from any of these conditions, I promise you we know someone that does. Probably someone in our family. And besides, we all have to die and go to heaven eventually. So something's going to kill us. So pick which one you want to die. And then eat the opposite or whatever. Okay, so let's talk about what I call the ripple effect. If you look at the little green center, this is your digestion. And what happens when you're digesting the food, if you're not doing it properly, it goes into toxicity. Right, so something is not hitting the cells the way it needs to, or we're not getting, so it becomes a little toxic. After toxicity comes inflammation. That's where we have the inflammation. And it's usually the weakest part. If we have heart disease, then it hits the blood vessels. If we have anxiety, it hits the brain. So whatever kind of the weakest link is in your body, that's where your inflammation kind of hits first. That's where you're going to see the first benefit of your nutrients not being used effectively. And then you would go into illness, right? First you have, the veins and the arteries having trouble, and then you go into heart disease. That's when you start seeing your cardiologist. And then, like I said, eventually something is going to kill us all. We're all going to get to heaven, but it's just a matter of what is going to take us there. So there's positive things that we can do, and this is what I call the positive ripple effect. So the same circle, we start with nutrition. Once we get that nutrition and our cells absorb it, we have energy. I always hate when people come to me and they talk about dieting. I see a lot of people that want to go on diets, and they think calories are bad. Calories are not bad. It's just a measurement of the food that we're eating that's going to our bodies. Calories are not bad. When you put gas in your car, the gas is helping your car run. It's the same way with fuel in our body. We're giving ourselves fuel. We want to have calories so that we have energy. If we didn't have food, we wouldn't have energy. So that's kind of the next level. The third level is your vitamins and minerals. So once you have that energy in your body and your cells are working, then they can absorb the vitamins and the minerals that you need. Then you can have, optimal functioning. Your brain's working, your muscles are working. You can deal with stress a little bit better because your vitamins and minerals are all in balance. That's what we're shooting for. Weight management is kind of the next level. If everything's working, then it's a little bit easier to manage your weight. And when all of this is working, then you have bodily health. All your body systems are working well. So it's kind of a positive ripple effect. We want that nutrition to be good so that it works its way out. I'm going to stop and take a break. Does anybody have any questions so far about targeted nutrition? Sometimes I tend to get scientific, but I love talking about nutrition. It's really exciting. No questions? Okay.
So the best way to find out is to go to someone like you and have blood tests done to see.
Yes, I can certainly do blood tests. Also, your basic labs from the doctor can give an idea of, your heart health and making sure your sodium and potassium, they're going to do all the pretty basic stuff. So that would give an idea. If you do have a condition that you want a little bit more specific, I do what we call bioidentical vitamin mineral testing. It's micronutrients. And so I could certainly test something like that if there's a need that you would need. Yeah, your regular doctor doesn't do that unless they're like a functional medicine doctor, or someone a little bit more specialized in, I guess, functional medicine. Sometimes your DOs, your doctors of osteopathy, will do a little bit more complementary. And you can ask your doctor if they would do micronutrient testing. To my knowledge, a lot of them don't. But if you're feeling sluggish or you feel like you're not, just at optimal where you feel like you should be, you can certainly ask. Yeah.
What was that?
Micronutrient.
I'm a recent breast cancer survivor, so I'm very interested in knowing what I should eat.
Yeah,
So could I come to you and
absolutely.
get tested?
Right. Yeah. And we'll definitely talk a little bit of specifics. I'm going to try and hit on all 6 of these topics. It's just going to be a brief little snapshot, but hopefully it'll give you an idea. So that was actually a great transition. So I've kind of had this in order of your sheet. So let's talk about heart health targets. So the heart health indicators, it can be your high cholesterol, high blood pressure, plaque buildup, recent heart attack, stroke. These are all things that, that would indicate that you need to pay attention to your heart health. A big one that we do for high blood pressure is we want to make sure your salt is fairly low, 1,500 milligrams. If you don't have high blood pressure, what Americans need is about 2,300 grams of salt a day, and that's like a teaspoon. So I just did a talk on Thursday about sweet, salty, and fat, and salt is in everything. When you buy canned products, there's so much salt in that. Barbecue sauce has salt. There's salt in everything. So if you do have high blood pressure, that is one thing you'll want to be aware of. And I'm sure your doctor's already talked to you about salt. The suggested diets, if you do have heart disease, is Mediterranean and DASH diet. And I have a picture toward the end of where the Mediterranean, actually, you know what? I'll just go through it now. Hold on. We're going to zoom. Close your eyes if you get dizzy. Woo! I'll take you through it. There is the Mediterranean diet. Okay, so this is, oops, that's not the right one. I put it at the end as a resource, but we have enough time that I'm going to kind of talk about it. So your Mediterranean diet, that's the diet that's typically from like Spain, Italy. People always ask me about pasta. Pasta is on the Mediterranean diet. We do want, if you do Mediterranean diet, to do whole wheat. If possible, we want whole grains, but lots of olive oils, olives, vegetables, tomatoes, peppers, things like that. That would be things that are on the Mediterranean diet. So if you have heart issues, that would be a good diet for you to follow. And then the DASH diet, and these are all, if you have a little bit more specific questions, I can get into that. Lots of leafy greens. We want 1/3 of your vegetables and fruits in your diet. These, we want whole grains. So potatoes would fall kind of in the starches. That's a real food. It hasn't been processed. Rices, we want like brown rice. We want whole grain bread, things like that. So 1/3 of your diet, fruits and vegetables. a third of your diet with carbs. Carbs are good, they're not bad. Some protein. This has actually a little bit of sweets, and then your dairies and your milk products. Okay. Oh yeah, there's the eggs. I was going to say, yeah, eggs is on the DASH diet as well. So for heart disease, this would be kind of a snapshot of what a good diet would be. And I don't say diet like, oh, I'm going on a diet. I just want you to think of diet as like a food plan. What's the best food plan for me? Diet tends to have a bad connotation, and I don't think it should. Okay, so suggested foods. These are kind of the top foods from the American Heart Association. Oatmeal, berries, leafy greens, salmon, nuts, and seeds. And those are all really good foods. I like to try and have people have a fruit or vegetable with every meal. And one of my favorite things for breakfast that I like to do is I do a smoothie. And that's a good way for me to get greens instantly. So you do like spinach or kale, or you can even do like a romaine lettuce if you're not really into the stronger tastes. Add some berries, add maybe a little bit of a banana, add either some milk or yogurt if you can do dairy. That's a nice good breakfast. And exercise most days of the week, unless your doctor tells you, right? Heart healthy, we want to get everybody exercising. What we really recommend for every adult, if they're able to, is 150 minutes of physical activity a week. And so basically 5 days a week for 30 minutes. Doesn't have to be all at once. You can do 10-minute intervals if you're at work and you take a 5-minute walking break. That's a good way, walk to the bathroom, walk to see a coworker. That's a good way to get physical activity in during the day. But yeah, every American, 150 minutes per week is ideal. And strength training. Don't forget your strength training, ladies. Okay, let's go into digestive health. This one's a little bit more complicated because digestive health is very individualized. So food allergies, we want to make sure if you do have food allergies, you test for your allergies and then you avoid those allergens. We talked about cantaloupe a few minutes ago. One of the people here has cantaloupe as an issue, so avoiding cantaloupe, right? If you have allergies, avoid that trigger so that you don't get the inflammation or the swelling of the throat, the itching of the hives, things like that. Inflammatory bowel disease or irritable bowel, one of the really strong correlations that we found in science is avoiding what's called FODMAPs. Has anybody heard of FODMAPs? Mm-hmm. FODMAPs, it's a really long, complicated word. It's fructooligosaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyphenols. Anyway, basically it's a whole bunch of food that you need to try and avoid so that your IBS and your IBD can calm down. If you have Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, those are in the inflammatory bowels, that's part of the IBD. You avoid those FODMAPs and then your IBD and your IBS subsides. It kind of reduces that inflammation. This is one, there are dietitians that specialize only in FODMAP diets. I'm not a FODMAP specialist, but if someone comes to me and they want to try doing the FODMAP diet to see if they feel better, I would certainly help counsel them. But that is a very, very hard diet to follow. You're going to avoid foods like potatoes and vegetables and fruits. It's very, very hard to follow. But if you're in suffering and you can't move and you're in bed because you're cramping so much, you want to do what's going to help get you back to life. So it is a really, really good diet to follow if you are suffering from that. Also, there's something called SCD, that's your specific carbohydrate diet, that can help people with tummy trouble. That's a little bit less strict than FODMAPs. FODMAPs is a very, very strict diet of what you can eat. SCD is a little bit easier. And then GAPS is another diet where you can try, if you're suffering from these. So if you have questions about this is a topic I could certainly go into more detail about. I just kind of want to give you an idea that if you know people that are suffering, there are diets that can help. And just keep me as a resource. If I can't help you, I can certainly send you on. Okay, so that's kind of all the IBS, IBD. GERD. GERD is your heartburn. So a couple of things you can do. You can finish eating 3 hours before bed. You can also raise your bed up. You can put your bed on little bricks or stacks, stack it up 6 to 8 to 12 inches, and that can help with your heartburn. And also limit foods. A lot of people know what foods give them heartburn. It might be wine, it might be chocolate, it might be spicy foods, it might be tomatoes. There are all kinds of different foods that make people's heartburn worse. Diverticulosis, also this is related to diverticulitis. Diverticulitis is when you go to the hospital. Itis means inflammation. So if you have diverticulitis, you go to the hospital. But diverticulosis, what it is it's all your stomach intestines that have little pouches that kind of pop out. And that's diverticulosis. So when those little pouches get inflamed, it changes into diverticulitis, and that's when you go to the hospital because you're hurting. Diverticulosis, though, does cause a lot of different problems. And so what dietitians and doctors suggest is no seeds, popcorn, and then fruits with seeds, because they get in those little pouches. And my poor popcorn lady, if you have diverticulosis, popcorn wouldn't be for you. So, and possibly add probiotics. With a lot of Digestive Health, sometimes we'll give probiotics as a recommendation. It is worth discussing with your doctor to make sure that the probiotics would be good for you. Or you could talk to me as a dietitian, and I could advise and suggest some probiotics. There's not millions. There's lots of different strains. So depending on what condition you have, there's certain strains that might help that condition. It's really a fascinating science, the probiotics. So trying to work on populating your stomach with good gut bacteria so that your brain feels better, that your inflammation feels better, your heart, everything is related. And then exercise, it's in all my slides because I'm trying to get everybody to exercise. Okay, so let's talk about brain health. Brain health, it's going to be the anxiety, reduced salt is not supposed to be in there. Sorry, that was from my other slide. Anxiety, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ADHD, ASD, those were that. Suggested diet is the MIND diet. So we already talked a little bit about the Mediterranean. We talked about the DASH diet. There's something called the MIND diet that combines the two of those. If you have Alzheimer's and Parkinson's in your family, that might be worth looking into. A lot of it's going to be your omega-3 fatty acids. That's your salmon, your mackerel, your tuna. Also, food we want to suggest is your leafy greens, berries, beans, olive oil, whole grains. And then whole grains, I want to make sure that it's not keto, because the next one says if you have someone in your family that has seizures, a keto diet can be effective for seizures in many cases. But and keto is really big this year, 2020. Everybody's going keto. I personally don't think it's the best diet for everybody. We still need carbs. That's our first fuel source. But if you have someone that does have seizure disorders, a keto diet can really be beneficial. So if you aren't having seizure issues, then whole grains is a good choice for you. We want to make sure that you're getting adequate nutrition, making sure you have adequate carbs, and the brain uses glucose as its first energy source. And then nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds are just about in everybody except for the digestive, with the diverticulosis. Nuts and seeds are very good for most people, with the exception of allergies and diverticulosis. And then exercise most days of the week, except if your doctor says no. Okay, cancer. Here we go. Cancer is a lymphatic, right? That's the inflammation of the lymph system. The best diet, the American Cancer suggests the Mediterranean diet. Are you familiar with the Mediterranean diet?
Yes.
Did they talk about? Okay. So what we really want is lots of vegetables, 2.5 cups of vegetables a day. That's why that breakfast smoothie, I love doing that because that gets your breakfast 1 or 2 servings of vegetables right there. Eat natural foods with lots of color. We tell the kids eat the rainbow. And then if you are eating bread, make sure, or carbs as such, make sure you're having whole grain carbs. And that basically means like a whole wheat bread instead of a white bread, or eating a potato instead of a chip or a French fry. You want to eat as natural, as close to the way God made it as possible. A potato is a potato, right? It hasn't been processed and fried and added salt and added MSG to make it taste good, right? A potato is a potato. And then the American Cancer also suggests limiting red meat and processed meat. That's going to be like your lunch meats, your hams, your turkeys, even the more processed, the salamis and pastrami's and things like that. Even your, grocery boar's head turkey and ham, that's considered processed meat. So if you do have cancer in your diet, that might be something you consider doing. And then alcohol for women, they want 1 drink or less per day if you have cancer in your family. So that's one that hopefully can help, prevent your cancers. And then exercise most days of the week. Okay, musculoskeletal. This is where we talked about arthritis, and this is where most people think of inflammation, but I still want you to think of the whole presentation as inflammation. So sometimes you might feel it in your arms, your wrists, your hips. Some of the suggested foods, olive oil, tomatoes. That actually surprised me when I was researching this. The tomatoes can help. And I do want to say something about tomatoes in a sec. Leafy greens, nuts, specifically almonds and walnuts. Fatty fish. Do you see a trend? Fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, tuna, sardines. I actually just ate my first can of sardines maybe 2 years ago, and I really liked it. I always had a bad impression of sardines, and I've been putting it in my gumbo for years, and I was like, I'm just going to try it by itself. I don't know. I liked it. So sardines. And then your fruits, your strawberries, blueberries, cherries, and oranges. Suggested additives would be a fish oil supplement or turmeric or ginger. Those are really good natural anti-inflammatories that can help with your musculoskeletal. I actually know someone that's taking a turmeric capsule for her, and I keep pointing to my elbow. One of my clients has inflammation and it's in her elbows. Every time I talk about inflammation, I feel like I'm pointing here. Okay, so anyway, so she's the one that's taking the turmeric to try and get that inflammation down in that joint. Now, there's a category of food called nightshades, and nightshades includes tomatoes, I put it in parentheses because I just mentioned it up there, eggplant, peppers, and potatoes. The reason, I don't want to go too much into detail, but if you are having inflammation in your joints, it might be worth taking out nightshades, seeing if you feel better, or taking them out and then putting them back in your diet after a week. And if you feel worse, that might be an indicator. I don't think everybody needs to remove nightshades. Someone asked me that recently. I don't think everybody needs to remove it. But if you do have a condition and you want to science experiment yourself, see if you feel better, remove that category of food and then see if you feel better. So that's my little caveat. And then exercise most days of the week. Blood sugar. Okay, diabetes. So it's the impaired glucose function. Your body isn't able to absorb the sugar that you're eating. And it doesn't have to be sugar. It can be your fruits. It can be your potatoes. It can be everything except for, it converts into sugar in your body from the carbohydrate standpoint. I don't want to get too scientific. So when you have blood sugar issues, your physician or RD might recommend eating foods with more fiber. That's a lot of your beans, your lentils, whole wheat, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. And the reason we want you to have the fiber is that helps regulate your blood sugar a little bit better. So when you have diabetes, we want to keep your blood sugar what we call tight. We don't want highs and lows and highs and lows. We want that blood sugar to remain as even as possible. And so the foods with lots of fiber are going to provide us the fullness and help regulate the blood sugars. We do want you eating sugar, but we want you eating natural sugar. We want you eating sugar that God provided, your berries, your fruits, your even milk. Milk is considered a milk sugar. That's where you get lactose. That's the milk sugar. But we don't want soda pop, right? Added sugars, cookies and crackers. Those are all things that have added sugars. If a product is an apple, that has natural sugar. That's the sugar that if you have diabetes, we want you to try and consume rather than the added sugar. Added sugar is where you get into a little bit more trouble.
What about dark chocolate that has 70% or more of cacao?
Let's see, what are we on? Blood sugar. For all of diabetes, what we want to try and do is kind of manage the carbs. So what I would say is take a look at that chocolate bar and find out how many carbs, and it might be a good snack, or it might be a complement to the meal, and you're going to get a little bit of heart benefit. So chocolate's a real heart healthy. So if you have diabetes, look at the counts of carbs to see if it can fit within your diet plan. So do you know diabetes? Sometimes we train people to carb count. And so you might have a certain number of carbs that you're trying to fit in each meal. And if your carbs are 45 and that chocolate bar is 15, then just know you have 30 more carbs within that meal. So yes, I think it can fit in a diet, and there's a lot of benefit from having dark chocolate, especially from the heart standpoint. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. And I love chocolate too. Okay, so reduce added sugars. These are going to be your processed foods, fruit and syrup. You might think, oh, I'm having this little can of, mandarin oranges and fruit juice, and it's just a lot of extra sugar that you don't need. It's better to just eat an orange than, have the orange with the extra sugar in it. Cokes, and that's in general. That could be, Dr. Pepper or anything, any kind of soft drink. The diet, if you do have blood sugar issue, I hate saying this, but the diet is always a little bit better because it doesn't affect your blood sugar as much. The Diet Cokes, it's still not the best choice for you. Anyway, I was trying to get people to drink water, teas, coffees, things like that. Okay, and then sugar in your coffee, right? A lot of us add sugar in the coffee or even the creamer, like the International Delight or some of the Coffee Mates, a lot of extra sugar in there. So if you have blood sugar issue, this is straight off the Diabetes Association website. There are 4 diets they recommend: Mediterranean, vegetarian, I thought that was interesting, low fat, and then the DASH diet that we talked about. And then exercise.
Maybe the vegetarian because ordinarily most vegetarians eat less processed food.
That could be. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, one of the foods I was trying to buy you guys, and then I went over budget, was I was going to give you guys kale, like kale chips. And so those are, do you like kale chips?
Trisha has them.
Yeah.
Well, it takes some time, but they're easy to make.
Yeah, they're very easy to make, but kale chips is a great way that you can get your kale in, your green leafy vegetables, and then you just put some olive oil and stick them in the oven. They're actually really good. Did we, I'm trying to think, Judy, did we make any kale chips? No, right? We did a kale salad. I don't
Yeah, we
remember.
did the kale salad.
Okay, I don't think we roasted any kale.
Yeah, it seemed like somewhere along in there, I thought we did a roast.
Yeah, anyway, we might have. But anyway, it's actually really good and it is super easy. And anytime you eat kale, Judy knows this, you want to massage your kale and then add a little bit of olive oil, and it breaks down the fibers and it makes it easier to eat, and it's so much yummier if you give it a little massage. So if you're going to massage therapy in a few minutes, you can say, hey, let's massage some kale. Because it's just breaking down all those cells, just like when you get a massage and you break down all your stress bubbles. So, okay, so that's the end of the targeted nutrition. Now I'm going to kind of transition into slow, mindful eating. So what is mindful eating? Mindful eating is being present with your food, your environment, and your emotions. And I have a little slide that talks about kind of the steps. So what I want you to do when you're mindfully eating is observe. Look at take in all your food, take in all the senses. Look at what your food looks like, smell it, taste it, enjoy. We have a word in nutrition that we call the mouth feel. How does your mouth feel in it? Is it crunchy? Is it squishy? Is it juicy? Think about the senses that are going on within that mouth feel. Listen. People don't think about, oh, how is my food sounding? Crunch. When you bite that first potato chip, actually this goes back to my presentation I gave a couple days ago. The manufacturers have designed the potato chips and all our processed food to be kind of the optimal point where we just want more. So they've taken psychologists and mathematicians and scientists and food people and chefs, and they designed, for instance, a potato chip. How can we make that potato chip taste the best so that people want more and more and more? And my presentation that I gave on Thursday basically said the first potato chip is always going to be the best chip, because that's going to give you kind of that high of like, oh, it's salty, it's crunchy, it's yummy. And the reason we keep going back for more is kind of in our own mind. And the scientists have found that out, and the marketers have. That's why our chip market is out of this world. It's so high. Everybody eats junk food, but it's our brain enjoying that snap, enjoying that salt, enjoying that taste, and the first chip is always the best, but we still want more because we're trying to recreate that initial high, per se. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Anyway, very interesting stuff. It was a whole marketing and nutrition talk that I gave. So anyway, going back to using all your senses. And then digestion begins in your mouth. So your amylase, you have an enzyme that starts breaking down your food. So it's really important to chew your food. And, if you're a mom, you might have said, hey, chew your food better, chew your food better. And it's true. You want to stimulate that amylase so that your digestion starts working. If you chew your food better, it's going to help everything on down the track. And then think about wine tasting. If anybody's ever gone wine tasting, I'm not a wine drinker, but you swirl the glass, you sniff it, you take it in your mouth, you swish it. There's a whole process you go through when you're wine testing. And that's an example of how you can be mindful within your food, right? You look at your food. We give thanks to our food. You know, we look at it, we sniff it, we look, you know, we taste a little bit, we hear it, all kinds of things. So think about, as the wine tasting, there's a whole process that you go through for wine tasting. What would it be like if you did that for your food? It's very different. So here's an infographic that I found. I thought this was interesting, and I know it's really small, so I'll read it to you. The first one is always try and sit down at a table. How many of you guys are like this? Like, oh my gosh, you know, drink a little bit or eat a little bit, and then you switch the laundry, or you did this, do this. I know I'm very guilty of that, especially in the mornings. I almost never sit down to eat. But for mindful eating, that's a good tactic to use. Before you eat, clear the clutter off your table. That's another one. I'm going to tell you, I'm not the best at mindful eating. My table's a wreck. But clear your table. You know, if you want to do maybe a practice run of mindful eating, make sure the table's nice and clean. Maybe have flowers, or I think down here it talks about music. Set a place for yourself, even if you're eating alone. You know, set out a napkin and a fork and a knife and a spoon in your glass, and have it all presentable, even if it's just you for yourself. Use tableware and utensils. I have this bowl, it's so cute, and it's like a green flower. It's one of my favorite bowls, and I hardly ever eat from it. Sometimes I do oatmeal in it, but it's really pretty, and I don't know why I never eat, but I thought that was really interesting. You know, if you have a favorite dish, maybe take out your china for one meal and make that, this is going to be my mindful eating meal. I'm going to set out my china, or have a, you know, my nice stemware or something like that. You know, have something you enjoy. Take a moment to adjust the lighting. If it's too bright, dim them or turn off the lights, or use the sunlight. Have music that, you know, makes you relax and enjoy your food. It's not, you know, hard, heavy metal or something like really fast. Nice and enjoyable. And then the last one, and this is where I'm really guilty, try and minimize your multitasking, right? So if you're doing a mindful eating session, just put your phone away, have your laptop put away, the newspaper, you know, try and be present with your food. That's what mindful eating is being present with your food. A couple of others, I know I already talked about chewing your food well. Eat slowly. Try and, what was it, 100 bites? What was the thing like years ago? You were supposed to chew your food like 100 times? Was that right? 100 seems like a lot.
Brushing your hair.
I think it's 20 to 30. 20 to 30. So see if you can chew your food 20 to 30 times. I mean, that's really interesting to think about. Are we doing that? I don't think we are. Yeah, you are? Okay, Ellen.
Yes, I eat very slowly.
Okay, well that's good.
Everybody's through, but I'm still eating.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just you're digesting better. So, and then savor your food. And then this is one of my favorites, and I put it way down, is brush your teeth when you're finished. When you're done with your meal, tell yourself, I'm going to brush my teeth. That signifies it's over for the day, or the meal. And this is not my child, but this is often how the Thummel family eats. It is, you know, rushing to high school, or rushing to here, rushing to this activity, and it's food in the car. And I'm trying to think of the last time I went through the drive-through. I almost never go through the drive-through. So my trays of food might have like hash browns. That's the big one. My son likes hash browns. So we do hash browns and eggs and fruit in the morning. So that's his breakfast. And sometimes my car smells like hash browns because he's eating his hash browns on the way to school. But every time we eat in the car, it's something I prepared. It's carrots and hummus. It's trying to think of other ones. Yesterday it was kiwi and strawberries. And I don't care if my kids eat in my car. I feel like we live in Houston. We're going to drive that far. You know, we're going to eat in the car. But I know that when the kids are eating in the car, when I'm eating in the car, it's not mindful eating. So I don't say this, I don't put this picture up to say this is what we should do, but this is what a lot of our lives look like. And maybe just have a meal once a week where it's mindful. Maybe if you go out and you have no control of the lights and the environment, but maybe that's a time when you say, I'm going to take this 30 to 50 minutes and really enjoy my food and really be present with, you know, my spouse or my family. Or if you're by yourself, just be present with yourself. How are you feeling? What was good about the day? What didn't go as well? Those are all things you can, you know, think about if you're eating with yourself. So that is basically the end of my presentation. I'm gonna put this slide back up in a minute. There was one more diet that I wanted to talk about. This was the MIND diet. We talked about that a lot. Your MIND diet was the one that was really beneficial for the neurologic, the brain health. And that's gonna be your fatty, you see your salmon up there. There's beans, almonds, blueberries, broccoli. I think there's a tomato under there. So lots of fruits and vegetables. And then your nuts and your fatty fish. That's going to be really beneficial for the mind. GAPS was a little bit more specific. And then specific carbohydrate diet is very specific. So those are just some other diets that, or food plans that can help people with different conditions. And I think we have about 5 minutes for questions and answers. Yes?
What do you recommend as a substitute for the fatty fish in practically every diet if the person is vegetarian?
Would the person be able to take a fish oil supplement? No, because you're trying to avoid, okay. So I would say probably a flax oil would be a good supplement. And you can do flax oil as a squeeze, like an oil, or you can do flax oil supplements where you actually take the little pill. So yeah, that'd be a good option.
Oh, I've noticed that with salt, for people who have iodine need to have with thyroid, that a lot of the salts that you find in the store have additives in it. Is there any type of recommendation or knowledge of what would be a good substitute? Not substitute salt, but
Right.
what kind of salt?
Yeah, that is a good question.
Because it has
I
that
actually,
sugar in
I
it.
don't know the answer. A lot of them add silicon dioxide to it.
Good sugar.
And sugar?
Yeah.
Really, to iodized? I haven't seen that specifically. I wish I knew because I'm probably going to switch to whatever it is. My son's been eating sea salt, and I'm actually a little concerned that he's not getting enough iodine. Because another way you can get iodine is through kelp and seaweed. And so, you know, that would be another choice. I wish I knew the answer. I don't. Even like I'm trying to think, like Morton's is the big one, and it still has the silicon dioxide. I don't think Morton's has sugar in it though. I have never seen sugar in there, but it does have silicon dioxide. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
I think more of the salts that come in a box without a pour spout are the ones that don't have the additive is to help it pour, to keep it really dry and
Yeah.
help it pour out. If you're going to measure out your salt, but if you're planning to put it in a shaker, or you can buy the salt crystals and put them in a grinder.
That's true, yeah, yeah.
And
Those don't have
Penzie's,
anything added.
Okay, yeah, it's a salt crystal.
Penzie's Spices, I know up in the Heights, it's Penzey, has just zillions of different kinds of salts. And I'm sure different ingredients and different manufacturing and stuff. You might look at
Interesting.
Penzie's.
And you can order from them online too.
Penzie's
Yeah.
is on 19th near Shepherd.
Okay.
But I've noticed recently a lot of the grocery stores have a very good selection of salts.
Yes.
Okay.
Even some of the specialty finishes.
Yeah, so look at the salts, and then just make sure that, you know, if you do suffer from like thyroid issues, you do want to have that iodine, so make sure that the iodine is in those salts. So, and I'm gonna pull this over. So these are fruits and vegetables. I didn't bring vegetables, but anyway, we did fruits and nuts, and every one of these that has an indicator for a specific diet has them listed on the card. So my coconut does not have a card because it wasn't recommended in any diet. Also cashews, it's kind of surprised me. It was not specifically indicated. They all said, you know, fruits and nuts and things like that. So now is a good time, and if you want to make 2 different rows, and then you can kind of grab a little Dixie cup and then add what you would like. And then if you have any more personalized questions, we do have about 3 minutes left, and I can certainly take those questions in a more private corner over here. But anyway, thank you guys so much. I hope you learned a lot. I hope it wasn't too like, I get really excited talking about nutrition. So, all right. Stephanie, would you like to start?
Oh, did we remember about that?
Oh, I
We
think
did.
it
Always
yeah.
recorded.
Thank
You might
you.
want to turn it off though now, maybe.
Yes.